Okay. So restart the program. Oh, so we need to call this and okay. So it's like you are saying that make sure the Flutter is initialized, then load the shared preferences. So we did it before, yeah. Okay. So let me explain what we are trying to do. So we have created a class called shared preference service. Shared preference service. What we are doing, this shared preference service will handle the shared preferences, the variables or values that we are going to store in the shared preferences. It will handle this. So it doesn't take any parameter. So when in the main, we just call this class, we just create the instance. But creating the instance is not enough, because the class needs to load or create the shared system level shared preference instance. It needs to get the access to the shared preference maintained by the system. So that's why we created a function called load service. And inside the load service, first we make sure that the system is initialized. So this is like a common way of change, like checking this from Flutter framework. They give you this function to make sure that system is initialized. Okay, something like this. Okay, we are mainly concerned with this line. What does it say? It says that we are calling this system level the package class. This is the shared preference. That's why you need to import the shared preferences dart. So inside this we have the shared preferences class, which has a function called get instance. Okay, get instance. So it will provide you an instance, or a link, you can say, to the shared preference maintained for this app. Okay, this object is your entry point to the shared preference database, you can say. Now, before we go and implement the other functions, you need to understand the concept of async. So to quickly explain it, uh, whenever whenever you want the execution to stop at a certain line until that function call finishes, then you need to use await. Like for example, if I say there is a print, Now, what does it mean? If you don't use await, if you don't use await, one thing is it will not take. You have to use await. That's why it's giving error. But for like understanding, if I say if I don't use await, then what will be the behavior, and what is the behavior if we use await? If we don't use await, what will happen? That this function will be called in another thread. You can say it's called in another thread, and the main thread will continue in the next line. So before you finish this line will be executed, and then the load service will return. And it might be inappropriate, because sometimes what happens that you want to finish something and then do something. So we want to get the instance first, and it can take time because it needs some system level initialization. So you need to finish it first, then you go out of the function, or you do the next thing. So if you have this kind of scenario, then the whole thing is called asynchronous execution. So you need to wait, you need to use this keyword await. So it's like I am waiting this line, this preferences assign the value, this assignment will await, or it will be delayed until this function returns. So the execution will, you can say the Flutter will stop here. It will not continue in the next line until this function finishes and returns the value of shared preferences. You can see it returns a future. It's called future in Flutter terminologies. Like it's returning a value, but it's returning in future. It will take some time. So you are saying that, okay, I will wait for this future, and then when I get it, I will return. So in any function, if there is a await keyword, you need to mention that the function itself is asynchronous. If you remove asynchronous, he will give you error. He will say that you cannot put await here. You need to add asynchronous, async. So this is a very quick explanation of asynchronous. You can always go back to flutter.dev, and you can always read async concept of async. No, it's not we don't want the widget. We need to go to, like, yeah, you can see how these are like asynchronous builder, but the concept of async await, this you will also find as part of Dart, Dart language, like how to use the uh, asynchronous execution or asynchronous functions. Okay, but to do our job, the concept is anytime you want to go to next line, but before you go to next line, you need to finish this line first. Then you should use await, and the main function should be given the label of async keyword. Okay, now let's go back to main. In the main, we create the shared preferences, and then we call the preference service load service. This is the service where this service we are calling it, because this is itself, it's a await, like an asynchronous function. And also in the main, we want to wait for him. We want to wait for him before we go and run the my app, because in the my app we will extract some values from service. So if it is not loaded, how can we extract some values? So that means we will wait until the load service finishes. Okay, then we will call my app. And normally preference service, this object is a global object, it's a one instance. So you create one instance for the entire app. So either you keep it as a like in the main and pass it to the classes, other classes, something called singleton. In uh, design patterns they call it singleton, like it's a one instance for one class, like for the whole application, for the whole software, because you don't need multiple shared preference service for the same app. Okay, so we want it to pass it on to my app, so we created a shared preference parameter, so we pass it there. Also we need it to be passed on to the training page, so also we can send it there, shared preference service there, and we say that this parameter is also required. So here when you call the training page, also you send him. And where do you send it from? This one you want to send this one, and this is in the widget. So you cannot get it directly, you need to get it through widget dot shared preference service. Okay, great. So we are passing it down the same object, we are passing down the tree. So it is created in the main, and we pass it to my app. From my app state we are passing it to training page. Great. So the training page has shared preferences. Very good. We are almost done. Now let's go back. We don't need this. Let's make like, okay. Let's go to the build. Remember the icon button, this icon button, we said that this value of is dark is not saved across restart, right? We said it. So we want to save it in the shared preference. We want to save it in the shared preference. Okay. Now, how can we do it? Very simple. Remember, we have access to shared preference from this class. Look at the, say, we can say widget dot shared preference service. We have access to this. So we can create or we can call a function there, save mode value, suppose, and give him is dark. Okay, so we'll save the mode value in that, but we didn't create this class, sorry, this function in this class. So let's go back to the shared preference and create this function which takes a bool, the mode is dark, suppose say is dark, and do something, save it. Now how can you save this value? The principle of saving values in shared preference is it saves against a key. Okay, against a key. So it's very simple. You can if you go back to the shared preference thing, see, saving is very simple. So this one we already did, get instance. Saving is very simple. So you use the instance, and it has set int, set bool, set double, set string list, like it has different function, and it is saved against a key. It's saved against a key. And when you want to read, you read against a key also. You read against a key. Okay. So here, what we can do, we can use this same preference and call set bool, give the key. It's a key value pair. Against a key, a unique key, you save the value. So let's give the key name as, for example, is dark mode, and save. What is the value? Value is dark. Okay. So from the main here, if when you call save mode value with the value of the is dark, then this function will be called, and it will save in the shared preferences as a bool, because it's a bool value, and against the key is dark mode. Okay, is dark mode. Very good. Excellent. Now go back again. Here we save the value, and we refresh the oh, sorry, this one. So we refresh it. Still happening. Okay, good. Now we save the value. We save the dark mode value. Now this value, when you restart the program, close it and open again, you can read it and use it here. So the is dark by default is false. By default is false. But before we make the build the app, we can get this is dark, set the value from our preference services. Now we need to get the current value from the shared preferences. In the callback of the function, we saved it. But when we want to draw the or lay out the UI for the material app, before we lay out, we want to get the value, get the saved value. So let's make a function get mode value. Okay, get mode value. So let's make this function in shared preferences. Get the mode value. It will return a bool, and it will return what? This key, the value of this key. Preferences get bool. There is set bool, like there is get bool, and you need to tell which value to give, which value to get. So we say, we call that we want to get the get bool of this dark mode. So what does it say? Oh, so we didn't say return. Okay. So, oh, so that comment was actually about about null safety. It's about null safety. So what he's saying that this can be null. This can be null. So let's see how we wrote in our previous cases. Oh, yes, the double question. Yes, true. So why it's so to solve it says that it can be null. So you to have the new version of Flutter, it must be null safety. Null safety means you need to take care of any conditions where the return value or computed value of a function is null. So you have to take care of this. So there are many ways. One of the way is like this. You say if it is null, you say if it is null, then we will send false. But why still it's not taking? Oh, sorry, I'm sending a character, a string, so it should be a bool. Okay, so you're saying here that get the instance of this dark mode, but it might not be created because it might not exist in the shared preferences. So in that case, this get bool will return a null, and this double question mark means if the return value is null, then the default value will go out of this function is a false, because until you make a set bool with this key, you cannot get a get bool with the same key because this key is not created yet. So he will send a null. So in a null safety with newer versions of Dart, because it's null safety is enabled, so you cannot return a null out of a function unless you explicitly mention that this value can be null. Okay, so this is actually a quite like important topic. So you can go and read yourself more about null safety. It's called null safety. Okay, now we go back to main. So now we are reading the is dark from the shared preferences, and then we are using this dark in the theme mode. So let's restart the program and save it the dark. Then we stop it. We stop it. Now let's restart the program and see if the app has stored the shared preference value or no. Alhamdulillah, it's saved. If you're not sure, change the color to light mode, stop the program. If you want to make sure, you can put it out. We can close from the simulator. Boy, it's not coming. Okay, so you can close all apps, run it again. It remembers the setting. So this is a very useful way and one of the essential way of storing information in shared preferences. Did you get the thing? Did you understand what we have done?
Yes, it was clear.
Anything not clear for others? This is a very important
It is.
concept. Yes, yes, please go ahead.
I know. I mean, it's clear for me.
Okay, so you need to practice and implement it in your project. So again, we this is the last class of this week. So we will resume inshallah in on Monday. So again, what we'll do is on Monday we will see at the beginning what you have practiced. So please go through the new concepts we have done so far, especially today. Today we have learned two very fundamental concepts. These concepts are not just related with UI. You, draw UI is simple, but these issues like what we said, like sending callback to parents and from parent to child, and then calling it back, this kind of concepts, uh, it's not very clear from the documentation. So if you just go and write programs, you will be stuck with them. You will be stuck. Okay, how can we solve these things? These are not like clear in the documentation. They don't mention it clearly, but these are known by experience. Like if you start developing, within days you will come up with issues and you need to solve it. So one of them is this, what we said, that we have this button, which is in the child, but the UI refresh should happen from the parent. So this scenario is a very important scenario, and we showed you how to solve another way of solving it is to have a central state class, like what we did here. Like there is a like a central shared preference class. So similarly you can have another class which contains the essential functions, or the central controller. Like there are many design methods in software development. So if you have a computer science background, maybe you have taken software engineering course and you have seen that how to arrange your code. There are many like suggestions, like you can arrange this way, that way. So one of the way is to have a central class, one object of that class. Like it will be one object, like the whole software wise. So and that object will contain the system level or the app level services or the settings. So anytime you want to get it, you get from him or through that class, through that object. Okay, so this is one way. Like similarly, like we are keeping one shared preference for the whole app, and we are passing it the different child, or through the tree, down through the tree. So similarly you can keep, like if you have several such objects, so instead of passing each object as a parameter, you can keep these objects inside another object and pass that object as one parameter. So like it's a double layer of access. Like you access one global object which contains instances of all other global objects. So this is one way of like arranging the code. And as you can see here, we have to do the shared preferences, the load and everything in the main before we call the run app or run app function with the main class of UI. So and also about shared preferences, like similarly, like you have get bool or set bool, there is also like if you just copy, like there is set double if you want to save a double value. Similarly, just give the key and the value. If you want to save an int, you can save an int value, set int, set string, set string list. So through this thing, you can save like few megas. Like if your data, the settings, if it doesn't take like more than a few mega, it's you can use shared preferences. But if it takes like tens of megabytes of app data, user data to save, then no, don't use shared preferences. Rather, create local databases and save your data in the local database. Okay, so this is the way we do it in Flutter. For small values, you can save in the shared preferences. But if you have larger amount of data like tables, you want to save tables, user responses, user, like for example, user generates data, their messages, their like for example WhatsApp, it saves in the local phone all the messages. Then no, then you cannot use shared preferences. You need to use the local database inside the app and save the messages either as files or as a tables inside the database. So this is one thing. Another new thing that we studied is the asynchronous programming. I didn't discuss a lot about it, but you can always go back to flutter.dev and uh, read about asynchronous widgets. There is a builder called Future Builder, Stream Builder. They all based on like asynchronous programming. And to know about more, I remember you need to go to Dart actually, uh, not in not in the flutter.dev, because you need to go to the language itself. So you can search about like Dart async. So then it will take you to Dart.dev and asynchronous programming, futures, async, and await. So as I mentioned before, that you should be familiar with Dart programming. So one of the concept of asynchronous programming is maybe new to some of you. So I suggest that you read this article, this one. Okay, this one, it has some good examples, and it explains what is a future, what is asynchronous function, and how it behaves. So because this is a very fundamental concept in Flutter programming, because in almost every case you need to get the data from the database, either from internet or from local database, and these functions are asynchronous functions. And also sometimes if the asynchronous function is too long, it will freeze your app. Then how to solve it? There are other ways, like you push him to like to a different thread, like make an isolate and make a different thread and do it there. So these are more advanced, like much more advanced features, like you are downloading a JSON file of like few mega, but it might freeze your UI, so user will not be able to do anything. So how can you avoid those things? So but before you understand those things, you need to understand what is called asynchronous programming. I explained it very quickly to give you just basic understanding, so that you have an idea. But it's always better to go through the article. It has a lot of examples and explains the difference between async, await, what is mean by future. These three keywords are the most useful keywords. Okay, so this is another thing that we have studied today. So we have few more minutes. We will take for any question or any comments you have until we finish, inshallah. Anything you want to add or you want to ask, you can please just turn on your mic and you can ask. No question?
I got a question about that database.
Yes, you can go ahead.
Are images usually stored in a file system or in a database?
What?
Images like applications or
Okay.
web applications.
Yes, images, MP3 files. I mean, any files. We store in file system, in Android or iOS file system or Windows file system, like a normal file. So what, inshallah, we will, in the next week, we will dedicate one class for database, and it will be more clear, inshallah. But for HTTP download, these things we will not cover in this course. But what we do is, when we download a file using HTTP package, there is a package called HTTP. So you can use it and download any file from internet. And you can check, there are packages to check whether the internet is connected or no, and so on. So once you download them, they are also like asynchronous function to this download also are asynchronous. So when you download them, then you can save in the in a local folder. So every operating system like iOS or Android provides some local directory. There are packages, you can use them to get those directory path. You can get the directory path, and then in that path you can save them. You can create directory, you can create files, everything you can do. You don't need permission. Okay, you don't need permission. So you can save them in your local file, local directory, images, mp3 file, JSON files, any files, Word files, PDF files, any files. Database we mainly use for text. Like for example, our Quran app, the ayahs, all the ayahs or surah information, the surah names, everything goes into the database. But the images of the Quran pages, they are downloaded or they are part of the file system. Does it make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Any other question? Okay. So if there is no more question, we will stop the recording.